We're all familiar with the idea that one day our own Milky Way will merge with its great spiral neighbor Andromeda. And it is true that we are on a collision course. However, the truth may be more complex than just this simple statement suggests. So let's explore how we know this, how likely it really is, when it might happen, and what the consequences would be. And first of all, to establish some context, just how big is Andromeda? Well, it has a diameter of about 220,000 light-years, which makes it roughly twice the size of our own Milky Way. It also contains somewhere between 800 billion and 1 trillion stars. And so there's a lot of it out there. So then how do we know that the Milky Way and Andromeda are on a collision course? Well, back in the early 1990s, astronomers noticed something strange about Andromeda. It seemed to be moving towards us at a speed of 69 miles per second or 111 kilometers per second. This discovery was made possible by measuring the Doppler shift in the light coming from the galaxy. And that's where we learned that the galaxy was moving towards us. However, they didn't realize at the time why Andromeda was speeding up until some 20 years later. In 2012, researchers discovered that our galaxy, the Milky Way, was also moving towards Andromeda at 68 miles per second, or 109 kilometers per second. And this confirmed what many had suspected for a long time, that the two galaxies were on a collision course. So then why are the galaxies moving towards each other? Well, the answer is because they're both falling towards the center of mass of the two galaxies. Because there are other galaxies within the local group that have their own gravitational pull, the combined center of mass of the entire group isn't actually in the center of the group, but is instead closer to the center of Andromeda, and this means that both the Milky Way and Andromeda are falling towards this point and destined to collide. So then, how likely is this collision? Well, it seems incredibly likely at the moment. The best measurements suggest that there's only about a 1 in 10 chance that the galaxies won't merge. And this is because the two galaxies are getting closer together at a rate of 68 miles per second, or 109 kilometers per second. And if this remains constant, then they will collide in roughly 4 billion years' time. However, it's important to remember that this is just a prediction, and the future behavior of the galaxies cannot be known with absolute certainty. There are a number of factors that could change the outcome of the collision, such as the gravitational influence of other galaxies in the local group or dark matter. So then what would happen if the galaxies do collide? Well, according to the current understanding of physics, it would go a bit like this. First of all, most stars would probably not even get that close to each other. This is because most stars lie in a flat pancake-like structure known as the galactic disk, and the majority of stars in both galaxies would remain in this disk after the collision. Then, over billions of years, the two disks would gradually merge into one, forming a single flat structure containing most of the stars. But while this is happening, the distribution of stars would not be even. Instead, there would be a sort of wave-like ripple effect that would extend outwards from the center of the merged galaxy. And this would happen because the stars would still be orbiting their respective galactic nuclei, and these orbits would be slightly different. This merging process would take billions of years to complete, and during this time, the galaxy would look like a very distorted version of a spiral galaxy. Eventually, however, the stars would settle down, and the galaxy would eventually become spherical in shape, much like Andromeda M32. But what about Earth and the solar system? Would it disappear during this process? Well, no, not exactly. You see, the solar system lies in the Orion Arm, which is a minor spiral arm of the Milky Way. If the Milky Way were to collide with Andromeda, the solar system would merely experience a slight change in its orbit around the center of the new galaxy. So in summary, the collision between the Milky Way and Andromeda would be a pretty violent event, but Earth itself would survive mostly intact. And so you can rest easy knowing that your home planet would survive the apocalypse. However, there are still many questions about what will happen when the two galaxies collide. For example, what will happen to the supermassive black holes at the centers of the galaxies? Will they merge to form one giant black hole, or will they somehow end up orbiting each other? And how will the collision affect the formation of new stars in the galaxies? These are just some of the questions that astronomers hope to answer in the years to come. In fact, they can already observe a recent collision between two spiral galaxies, the galaxies NGC 4038 and NGC 4039, nicknamed the Antennae Galaxies because they resemble a pair of antennae. By studying the evolution of these galaxies, they can learn more about what will happen to the Milky Way and Andromeda. And here's an interesting fact. We should be grateful that the Milky Way and Andromeda are colliding. That's because without the collision, the two galaxies would continue to orbit each other for billions of years and would never merge. But the collision will trigger a burst of star formation in both galaxies as the gas in the two galactic disks is compressed and heated. So perhaps the collision is a good thing because it will ensure that our descendants will live in a galaxy that is full of stars. However, it's worth bearing in mind that although it's called the Andromeda Galaxy, the galaxy isn't actually in the Andromeda constellation. In fact, it's in the constellation of Andromeda. So what's the deal with the name? Well, when Galileo Galilei first observed the object with his telescope in 1610, he thought that it was a star. He didn't realize that it was a galaxy until later. At the time, it was customary to name newly discovered stars after the person who discovered them. And so Galileo named the galaxy Andromeda after the wife of King Cepheus of Ethiopia, who was a prominent figure in the constellation. So you can call me old-fashioned, but I think it's high time we gave her a new name. After all, the ancient Greeks named the constellation after her, and she's not even Greek. She's Ethiopian. Anyway, it's up to you what you want to call it, just so long as you don't call it the local group, because that would just be plain rude. So there you go. That's the story of how the universe will end. Well, at least our part of it will. Until next time, thanks for watching. Now, if you want to learn more about the amazing universe we inhabit, then you'll love my weekly newsletter. It's free to sign up and you get one long-form essay every week, delivered to your inbox on Mondays. The newsletter is all about the amazing discoveries being made in space and the incredible technology we use to explore the universe. It's a great way to keep up to date with all the latest news, and I promise you will learn something new every time. To sign up, all you need to do is visit the website below and enter your email address. You can unsubscribe at any time, and your details will never be shared with anyone else. So what are you waiting for? Sign up today and join the community.